In this paint video, I'll be detailing the complete painting process for miniature bust as sculpted and printed. Unlike my other STL files, this will be a paid for mini, which I hope is represented by the detail and high quality of the model. So let's get into it. To begin with, let's lay down a base layer. When painting on a model, start with the innermost piece, so in this case, the skin. This is because we'll be painting further and further out with each layer, and any mistakes we make can be rectified in the next base colour. For the flesh, I'll be using skeleton bone, though any light colour can also work. Later on, I'll be giving the face a shade wash, which will bring out the features a bit more, but also darken it slightly. So for now, he might look a little anemic, but rest assured we'll be bringing colour to his cheeks. With the flesh done, we move on to the next main piece of this model, the shirt. Again, we're only laying down the base layer, so we can be as messy as we want with it. Try to avoid the skin, as we'd not want to be going back over something we've already painted. Whilst I'm painting the cowl, I will touch on the colour choice for this model. When picking out a colour scheme for the miniature, try to make pieces that touch each other similar colour. So for the cowl, I am using a light purple, which is analogous to the blue of the shirt. You could use similar colour to mine, or go for other colours like red and orange, yellow and green, or purple and red. By choosing colours that are close to each other on the colour wheel, we allow them to merge together and not clash. After all, if each piece of clothing was a different colour, he would look more like a court clown than a wise wizard. Keep colours that are opposite on the colour wheel for pieces that you want to be striking, like his flasks or the ribbon around his hat. Okay, for the velvet on the underside of the hat, I'll again be using a colour similar to purple, but this time I'll be increasing the hue and making it a bright pink. Now you can see this colour is clashing slightly with the blue of the shirt, but because it builds its way up, using purple as an in-between colour, we can get away with it. Now onto the leather part of the wide-brimmed hat. For this, a standard oak brown will suffice. Remember that even though it's a magical being, it is still bound by the clothing of the time. Most clothes in the medieval time period were pastel colours and often depicted as browns. If you're ever stuck for a colour to paint a fancy miniature, brown is always an option. With the majority of the base colours down, we can now add a touch of the complementary colours to the mix. For this, I choose green for the ribbon, as it is the opposite of the main colours we have used so far. But notice that even though it's a complementary colour, it still does not clash as much with the others because of the brown in the hat. The muted brown acts as a break for the other colours, which allows us to add a complementary different colour to the mix without it hurting our eyes too much by sitting right next to the others. Now to add some white to the hair and beard. If you want to make a younger rogue or hunter, then you could change this to your own preferred hair colour. The feature of this model is suited for both a wizened and fresh face. Using the same white, I cover the bottles on his belt. I do this first before adding the colour of the liquid, as it will be more vibrant and cover the white easily. Next, I break out the metallic paint. I'll be using lead belcher from Citadel for this, as it gives a deep silver, which I'll be painting over with highlights. Like most of the colours here, I'm painting mid-tones, which will allow me to add highlights as well as shadows later on. With most of the base colours down, I finish by adding the colour of the liquid inside the ampoules. For these, I want them to stand out as much as possible to give them an otherworldly vibe. For the first, I go with an orange-red, then a bright yellow-green, finally a bright blue. With all the base colours down, let's move on to the highlights. This is where we'll be careful where we hold. At the moment, I am using a painting handle, but I will switch to using a glove on the hand I'm holding the miniature. This is to stop the paint that is already on the model from rubbing off, as well as stopping the oil from my hand interfering with the next layer of paint. So for the light blue, I have just mixed a little white with the original colour. Then I use the tip of my brush to create small dashes across the crease of the fabric. This is to help break up the highlight and make it look a little more sketchy rather than having simple straight lines. Adding a little more white, I begin to make dots on the brightest part of the highlight. Next, move on to the hat. Unlike the base layer, we can tackle the highlights in any order we want. As we're using a smaller brush, we should make sure not to touch any other parts of the model besides the piece that we are painting. With highlights taken care of, we can break open the flesh wash and cover the face. Normally we would not want to use a wash on a bust, as they form tide marks easier, but because the face is highly detailed, the wash will fall into the recesses much easier. Any excess wash left on the model should be removed using the capillary action of a dry brush. I also use some black wash on the metal, as I'm not worried about tide marks on them, as they will add to the grittiness of the armour. And with that, I add some highlights in the armour using a lighter metallic, Vallejo aluminium, and call the model finished. Let's head over to the turntable and have a look at the finished piece. This piece captures both the mystical and magic components of a wizard, with its large hat and bottle of secretive potions, but also the pauldron, which brings a touch of a battle mage too. This will make a perfect centerpiece for a Dungeons & Dragons game, where the party might come across a magical traveller, or maybe a lone survivor of a wizard's duel. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'll catch you all soon.